Goed, in deze tijd heb je natuurlijk de mogelijkheid om heel gemakkelijk zelf je muziek te maken thuis, up te loaden, op YouTube te gooien of Spotify. Maar hoe kom je dan in de digitale zee van muziek nog een beetje uit de veren? Een band die dat gelukt is, en wel met 4 platen ondertussen, is The Boxer Rebellion. Deze hier naast mij. Guys, I was just kind of saying that in the big sea of digital sea of music these days, it's pretty hard to stand out because it's quite easy to get your music heard. But how do you stand out? You're one of the bands that made that work. How did you do it?
We didn't ever have an alternative career path that was good enough. So somehow we stuck together. We ended up just believing in the music and just working hard to keep in contact with fans and use social media to really reach out and develop a fan base that has always stuck by us. So with every record we gain more fans, and with more fans the word spreads, and through that we've ended up where we are.
You kind of have to start out somewhere.
We actually gave our first album away 5 years ago when we were doing Europe with editors. We just like, download it from here you go. And I think that, and just keeping going and slowly building our fan base really helped us, particularly to when Union came out.
It's funny that you mentioned the fans, because obviously you're independent. That means that you have to do a lot of stuff yourself, which is I don't know, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a good thing. It means that whilst we do jobs that aren't traditionally the jobs of musicians, like accounting or booking planes or things like that, the most important part, which is the creative part, remains completely free. And whilst other bands don't have to do accounting or book planes or any of the other stuff, they're often dictated to by record labels or teams that try to interfere in their creative process, and that's something that we don't have. So it's a net gain. It's a net gain for us.
But if you look at because obviously you use social networking a lot to be in touch with the fans. Like I see you do like YouTube interviews with the fans. You use Twitter, Facebook. But where is it difficult to know where the boundaries are? Is it easy for them to get really into your personal life, maybe?
Usually, I guess you just don't answer it if they ask something, because there's never like a.
Or you say no.
Yeah, you say no. I mean, like if someone asks a question on Facebook, you just don't bother answering it. Or if someone asks on Twitter, just depends. I mean, it doesn't happen a lot. I have to admit. I mean, maybe it's because we're not that big, and we like to keep this whole. We like to be, close to our fans and stuff like that. But I think most of the time people know what not to ask. I guess, I don't know. No one's digging. We're not that interesting underneath. So we're not going to be on like the tabloid newspaper or anything like that.
People have asked to marry you before. I've seen that.
Yeah, that'd be tricky.
That's crossing the line.
Yeah.
I was in Paris and we played a gig there, and a fan came up to me and she said, "I'm going to spend the rest of my life with you." And I said, "Well, no, you're not." In a polite way, but it was like, I don't quite think so.
Let's try an evening first.
I find it a little bit weird because obviously Twitter is one of the easiest ways to kind of get out there, and you're right, I feel like we kind of really push things with everything, and it's really helped us. But it's kind of weird when you're the other side of the world and somebody comes up to me and asks me how my wife is, and I forget, that you kind of every now and again. We're not that big where I just tweet once every 2 months and then you get 1,500 retweets. No, I tweet a fair amount, but I also know sometimes I feel like I'm tweeting to friends of mine because that's kind of what the level that I'm at. So I find it a bit funny when people ask me how my football team are doing and how my cats are.
That's exactly kind of what I'm wondering as well, because I sometimes wonder, like in the good old days, you'd have a kind of a mystical thing around rock groups, basically, because you don't know that much about them.
It's over.
Exactly. But is that a good thing? Because, like you said, it can check in on Facebook or Twitter, and they kind of know what you've been eating. And is that good?
I think, yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
I was just gonna ask how's your wife?
She's okay.
Sorry, that's all I really want to say. No, I think it's very true. I kind of long for that, wonder what that's like. But then again, I don't think there's a very good possibility without all that we would be nothing, And I think that's a very true possibility that if we'd have been around before,
we wouldn't have to.
Yeah. Well, we wouldn't have to be on social networking, but we may not exist anymore. So I think it is very important. But yeah, I like to think, when you can write on a postcard and be part of the fan club, and that's as deep as it went. And there was that mystique, and I think I just wonder if like teenagers or kids feel that same kind of thing that I guess we felt with bands, that this unattainable rock god kind of thing. I don't think they probably think that about me. They can come up and talk to me on merch, so it's not the same.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about your new album, Promisses. It's the fourth one. The first two, I believe you had a little bit more time to spend on. The third one, you had like 7 months. How long did you have to work on this one?
About, well, in all honesty, as long as we wanted. Because we can pretty much do whatever we want, but we started writing kind of March last year. We built our own studio, and then we needed to give ourselves a deadline, because you can't release things at certain times of the year, and then we just thought, we've got to finish this by January. If you give yourself a deadline, it just gives you something to aim to. So we did a lot of recording in London in our studio, and then we just went to LA with Billy Bush. Finished it off with a guy called Billy Bush from Garbage and Butch Vig.
Yeah, how did you end up with him? Is there a certain reason that you picked him for this album?
Yeah, through Fink, who's I think he's quite well known here. Yeah. We have the same manager, and he did Fink's last record, and just with his electronic background and the electronic elements that we were putting into the new record, it was just pretty much a no-brainer, and it really worked. So.
Tell me a little bit about how you approached the album, because you had a different way of working on the new tracks this time, didn't you? How did you start off?
We actually wanted to have the ability to record ideas as we wrote them. So initially we wanted to set up a studio in our rehearsal space for that reason, but it pretty quickly ended up being the exact right way to do it, with what we were imagining the album to end up being, which is a more optimistic, positive, upbeat album. So we recorded it layer by layer rather than as a group together, which is how we've done all of our other albums. We managed to be very tactical about what things we added in, and very precise, and hear it back straight away, which meant that we kind of managed to get a different sound. And for an album to be a fourth album and be fresh is sometimes quite hard, but I think with our approach to doing it that way, we ended up kind of making it as fresh as we could make it and different as we could make it.
Because as a band, you do work quite as a democracy, right? It's like if one person doesn't like the song, it's not going to be in.
Yeah.
Unless we beat them to the pulp.
Well, a democracy is actually if one person doesn't like the song and three do, and then the song's fine.
You've got a good point there.
Kind of. That in theory, but
Having said that,
that's not how we work.
It's a bribery.
It is kind of how we work, but I think that's usually on business kind of stuff, or everything like or artwork, but on songs, I think if someone despises something, like truly just doesn't like it, we don't put it on, because we're gonna have to play them live, and we're gonna have to stand by it, and we all want to stand by what we put out. I mean, there's songs obviously that you're gonna like better than others, but if someone truly hates a song, I don't think it would go on a record.
You just find out early on.
Yeah. Plus we have, I think, our taste in music is similar just enough where we kind of are all coming from the same place.
How does that work? Because this time, like you said, you made it more layered, so it kind of sounds like you worked a little bit more separate than together. How was that when you went into the studio eventually and you had to record everything?
We were actually all there for all the recordings, pretty much, when we were recording all the demos. I think, in retrospect, we didn't all need to be there at the same time, but we didn't know when things would happen. So, for me, it was the weirdest thing, because I don't think until the beginning of this year, when we went to record them, I'd played any of the songs all the way through, because we quite often laid down a loop of a rhythm and then we played over the top, and it more started from an idea and then finished as a song. And we'd never really done that before. So when we went to record, we actually had a week pre-production in a rehearsal studio, and that was the first time I'd played all of them.
Any of us.
And it was probably my favourite part of the recording sessions, the process really, because I was pretty worried about how they would all come together, or whether they would come together, because I knew 7 days after we started rehearsals we were going to record them, and I hadn't got a clue what I was going to play. But we got them down pretty quickly, a lot quicker than I thought we would. I didn't know how we were going to put the layers that we put down together and include them with our live sound. But I don't know, I was pleasantly surprised.
Another thing about how you start with your music, because you basically always start off with the melody and the music itself, and then the lyrics come in, right?
Yeah.
What does that do for the lyrics? Because does it make them maybe less personal because you're looking for a sound and maybe words that fit with that sound, or?
Well, with this album, especially this album, I wrote the lyrics as we were kind of recording it. In the past, it's always been we are going into the studio on this day and finishing them either in the vocal booth or on the way to the studio or something. So I didn't want that stress anymore. So and because we were able to have such a good level of quality for the demos. I mean, they're not really even demos, and Todd recorded all that stuff. Meaning they're not really demos because we used a lot of the stuff, and they were pretty much finished articles. They just needed finessing, and I didn't want it to be just like me mumbling sounds to get a melody across. I wanted it to actually have lyrics. So it was nice this time around to kind of have everything already finished. And that way, as we were going through the process, if there were things I wanted to change, I could, and it wasn't all last minute. It could be kind of, I gave myself some time. So, considered. Yeah. So I think the lyrics were a lot more considered, yeah, definitely on this album.
Is it true that you work with a kind of a theme for each album? Like there's a kind of a storyline?
I don't know. Not really. No, I mean, I guess there's a lot of relationships involved. Relationship kind of things involved in the albums, or there's escapism and that sort of thing. There's no real theme.
It's not none of the concept album.
No, they're definitely not conceptual. That's for sure.
Fair enough.
If you want them to be, they can The next one's going to be a triple album.
Maybe because they're written around the same time, they come from a similar place.
They're always have moods rather than themes.
Yeah.
I think it's more a feeling rather than like a specific narrative. Yeah.
So, would you consider yourself more of a recording band or more a live performance band?
If you'd have asked me that maybe a couple of years ago, I would have just said live. I feel like we hadn't quite got our best live sound down on record, and I feel like we've really developed sound-wise in the studio the last 2 albums, and so the answer now to the question you just asked me is I don't know.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, it is the reason why I've asked it, because basically the way I see your previous albums, it kind of looks like a group thing and really focused on the performance. And this album didn't have that feel to it. Maybe because of the way you put it together. But did you make this album more with the idea of just thinking about how the record would be, instead of thinking about how the live performance would be?
I think we actually got a lot of feedback live when we were touring the last album in terms of how up-tempo songs create a great gig. And I think with that in mind, we wrote songs that were slightly more uplifting and up-tempo. We definitely had the live audience in mind when we were doing that, but I mean, equally so, we just wanted to make it the best record, no matter whether we could play it live or not. We wanted to make just a fantastic record. So kind of a bit of both, I guess.
Well, having that said, I've heard you say in a different interview that you've never worked as hard as on this album. You really worked your asses off.
I said that.
So you said that. So why were you so lazy before this?
Well, we've always worked hard, but I guess I found some more energy.
Okay.
I found another, storage unit.
Is there like more pressure now with every album? Is there a new sense of?
Yeah, I mean, I think after the Cold Still, we kind of knew that we needed to make something that had songs on it that was a little bit more direct, a little bit more radio friendly. Such a crude term, and I wouldn't use that. And I guess commercially appealing in that sense, but also, and it wasn't just, we weren't trying to do that. We knew we needed to if we were going to grow as a band, pretty much, and we were very mindful of it right from the start. And that's why there are more upbeat songs, tempo songs, and the sound is more hi-fi and I guess more positive in a way, and it's kind of being reflected in how the album's doing at the minute.
You've kind of mentioned this before during this conversation, but you have all the songs have a very almost cinematic kind of feel to it, right? Because they're very spherical. They have an emotion, a kind of feeling with them immediately. Do you get that a lot from people? Is that how you work as well, from an emotion or maybe an image?
Sorry, I don't reach. Yeah. No, we get that a lot because we tend to we get a lot of things in TV shows and films and sometimes ads if we think it's okay, purely because I think our music is quite cinematic and epic and stuff like that. It seems to go well with video or pictures or and so yeah, we do get that a lot, and in the past that kind of thing, the cinematic stuff is translated or it's gotten us a lot of fans through things like TV and film. It's been like we like to say it for a long time, it's been our radio until this record really, and we didn't really get much radio, so we always have, I wouldn't say played up to it, but enjoyed that side of making music, make kind of grandiose cinematic songs.
I feel like it's also, it's not like we sit here and think, or we sit in the studio and think, oh, I'd really love to get, you know, song on a film or an ad or something like that. A lot of the stuff that we agree on also fits that bill. So there isn't an awful lot of stuff out there that all four of us get off on musically, but most of it, you know, I'll pluck a name out of the air like Elbow. I could sit and listen to Elbow or stand and watch them live and shut my eyes and imagine a million things, and they suit TV and images as much as anybody I could think of. And the things that really excite us and I think really bond us in the studio do that, and that reflects in our music just as much as the fact that we're aware that it has been our radio in the past, and it's you know, it suits what we do, and that aspect of it suits us because we kind of need it. But more importantly, that's just what influences us the most.
Well, you say that now, but I know as a fact that the album that got you into music was by the Spin Doctors.
No,
it's a bit different, isn't it?
That's the album. Well, I was just talking about this actually with somebody else. That's the album that made me want to play drums the most, which is a bit different. No, okay. Look, from a performance point of view, I was just talking about how that was the first album. I've been playing drums for a few years before then, but that was the first album I air drummed to. So that's more of a show-off thing. So in fact, I used to have my parents' house used to have a bedroom where the window faced the side. It was like a shared driveway, so nobody in the street could see what I was doing. And it was like a shared driveway across to the other house. And I would put the lights on. I didn't really have a mirror actually, so I put the lights on and then I'd open up a curtain so I could just kind of. I was like 13 or something. I'd showboat in front of a window, but I think people could see more than I actually thought myself, because I heard conversations going on between parents and neighbours. It was an awkward moment, you know. But I think that's the only album I could actually, right now, if you played it top to bottom, I could air drum all the fills for you. If you want that,
I would like that actually, yeah. Yeah, let's get back to the cinematic feel. I'm not the only one who's noticed, because you've in the past written music and even been in a Drew Barrymore film, right?
Yeah.
How was that? Did that change your approach to how to create a song?
It gave us actually a brief that was quite interesting to work under. We've never actually had a story or a mood given to us that we had to write for, and in that sense it was quite interesting and quite refreshing. So we got a specific kind of scene through, and we had to write something that fit that scene, and we got a lot of artistic direction, and for one song that was quite nice to have that, and it actually got us into a mode of writing which ended up helping the writing of our third album, in that it kind of spurned us on to write quickly and kind of got us into quite a good frame of mind. But it was fun. It was really fun to do it, and we went back and forth, and there were probably 3 or 4 songs that got whittled down to one that was just right, and then we ended up going out there and filming it and seeing an industry that we don't normally see the inside of, the movie industry, and just kind of having a lot of fun and laughs doing it. So yeah, it was a good time.
Would you say that it kind of changed, like you said, you picked up a few things, how you could work differently in a good way, or did it make it more difficult for you maybe?
I think it taught us how to write under pressure, and but no, kind of I think we started writing a little bit better after that. Weirdly, because I think it was just more the time constraint that we dealt with, and we had very little time to do it. We managed to pull it off, and I think if anything, it gave us a little bit more confidence to be able to write stuff in a short period of time.
Okay, well, to top this whole thing off, I'd like to just go over some facts I've heard on the internet. I just like to exactly. I'd just like to know if these things really happen and if they're true.
We are all male.
You are? Okay, well there goes my first question. Second of all, Todd, I kind of heard that you have really specific like haters and fans.
Haters?
Yeah, I heard that a certain Robert Plant was really, really rude to you.
Oh no, he wasn't really rude. No, he just shook their hand, Robert Plant. We went to a gig and
True or false?
We'd met him. True or false?
No, he shook my hand. It was only me.
No, false. Robert Plant is not a hater. He doesn't hate me.
Oh, right.
It just doesn't like you either.
No, he just snubbed him, shaking my hand once.
Okay. And then talking about the fans, because I've heard that this like crazy bitch got on stage once and sniffed your crotch.
Crazy bitch.
Oh, it was a dog. Yes.
There you go.
It was a dog. True.
Yes.
She's more of a deaf bitch. That's why she got on stage, because she couldn't hear any of the band going.
I think she was deaf and blind. Because no one had sniffed my crotch at a gig without,
She definitely had a sense of smell. She went to the smelliest place on stage.
Was she maybe looking for a little?
Yeah, cream for fun.
Well,
Nice, you could use the props.
yeah, exactly. It's just like
I
a
didn't
product
think we were
placement.
gonna work that in.
Yeah.
It's good.
I'll always find a way.
Seamless.
Okay, another one. Yes, we've already talked about your taste in music. Nathan,
Yes.
is it true that you get really nostalgically drunk on U2?
On
Yes.
YouTube.
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yeah, you knew.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just like the idea of you being drunk on YouTube. Like you haven't even had anything.
I don't know if this has been on the internet. I'm sure you've heard this before from friends or something. But if I've had a bit to drink and U2 comes on, I get really emotional. I don't know why.
You don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's just maybe I love Bono too much. Who knows? I'm the only one.
Give the mic back.
Oh, I'm getting all teary-eyed just thinking about it.
More wine?
Okay, what else? Oh yeah, I've heard that you've all been extras in a German porn.
No, false.
Not me.
Apparently there was something with a bar in Germany and
False.
Yeah, I wasn't.
You're still- no?
I wasn't
You weren't?
involved.
I wasn't there.
I don't mind telling this story because my wife knows, your wife knows. It's not.
I probably.
Oh,
nothing
the only
happened.
story is we were having a drink with our soundman in Hamburg on the Reeperbahn, which our hotel there was the bar in our hotel, and they were doing a porn shoot in the hotel main lobby, the lobby of the hotel. So it's kind of difficult to not be involved in not involved. you know what I mean. We were there.
The weird thing was that they what was that? There was us three at the bar. There was another kind of middle-aged couple, weren't there? And then there was this girl and the photographer and I guess the kind of agent guy. And the weird thing was, everyone was just sat down having a drink, and then the middle-aged couple left, and then they got on with the shoot. Like we just looked like guys that wouldn't care. But the other couple, we can't possibly do it while they're here, so we need to kind of get rid of those two. Don't worry about the other three in the corner of the bar. They'll be fine with it. And then as soon as they left, she got her bits out. Yeah, weird.
Well, maybe it's a compliment, you know? I just saw you as one of the sexy extras. They were like, these guys belong here. Or you just look pretty.
I had no idea what was going on.
No, I was in bed.
So the answer is false.
Fair enough.
I think if it had been in like Bristol or something like that, it'd be really weird. But it was on the Reeperbahn in Hamburg, so it's not really that crazy. But
Dirty streets.
yeah, very very dirty street. Oh.
That makes a good story. Okay, the last one. You've been a backing band for Ewan McGregor.
Yes.
Oh well.
False. I
Again.
wasn't involved. Oh yes.
Again, technically it's true. In part, me and Pierce were asked well, firstly, the band were asked to play at Ewan McGregor's birthday party, and then upon arriving,
How come?
we were actually involved in a TV series called The Long Way Down, where Ewan McGregor rode motorbikes with a guy called Charlie Boorman. But we were at the time we were involved in it. It was Ewan's birthday party, and we went and played it. And on arrival, they asked me and Pierce whether we could play along to Ewan singing a song. And so we did, and although it was a birthday party, he happened to choose probably the least party-like song. He chose Where Did You Sleep Last Night by Nirvana. By Leadbelly, covered by Nirvana in Unplugged in New York. And me and Piers played along with it.
I was his tech. I was like hitting his foot rounds.
Todd was the guitar tech, and it was
Messy.
slightly awkward and messy. And me and Piers didn't want to look at each other because we were afraid that we were going to laugh too much. So when Ewan gave me the big ending eyes, and I tried to pass the big ending eyes.
Well, give us the eyes.
When I tried to pass it on to Pierce, and he wasn't looking at me, I had to give Ewan the no big ending eyes, and it all kind of fizzled out. It was so, yes, true, we've been the backing band for Ewan McGregor. One of the most bizarre segues in my life.
I mean, he even said, didn't he? Did he say it to you?
He said it to me.
Do you ever wish you hadn't agreed to something that you agreed to or something? So he even regretted it before he got on stage himself, performing a very miserable song at your own birthday party with two people you've never played with. It was a recipe for disaster. But again, one of the best things about doing this job, and we're at a level where we're not like arena size where we walk from bus to arena, back into bus, and we don't talk to each other. You wouldn't believe the amount of nutty stories we have. And I've got enough stories for a whole lifetime. I love our stories. That's one of my favourite stories. And I've got plenty of dinner parties where I'm just going to be talking and everyone's going to listen, basically.
Well, maybe we should turn that into a series, because I'm pretty...
Piers' dinner party.
Yeah.
Dinner with Piers.
Yeah, maybe we can like situate you on it, like nicely
With a crowd.
Exactly.
And a mic.
And a mic.
Oh,
Wow.
and bingo.
Okay, well, last thing before we end this. For all the young musicians right now struggling, what would you say? Because I've heard you say in an interview once a pretty nice piece of advice that if it takes a long time, if it doesn't, you would miss out on a lot of fun of the whole building up your career. So.
Well, I guess with I'm very aware with some bands that particularly these days, and they can explode very quickly. So you can go from you can go from within 9 months to a year playing headlining 200-300 cap venues to you can times that by 10 or 20 sometimes. And if that happens really quickly, I think what I was getting at is that one of the best things about being where we are is, I mean, not many bands take it as slowly as we have, but it's so remarkably rewarding. And I know that we've experienced that over the last 2 or 3 years. And I was just saying earlier that I feel like that we probably get more of a sense of achievement than a lot of bands because we've been around for so long and we've worked so hard at it. But yeah, I think you do. I think you probably would miss out on something at the kind of the mid-range touring where it's really exciting, where you're used to playing to a couple of hundred and then suddenly playing to the difference between playing to a couple of hundred and a couple of thousand. I think is far greater than playing to a couple of thousand and 20,000. Because I don't know, there's just something exciting about that kind of size for me. And that's where some of my favourite gigs, I don't really like anything much bigger than a couple of thousand. Because the atmosphere is much better and I feel like you get a band at a really good level in those types of venues. So, okay, yeah, I guess I was getting at that really.
Fair enough, so take your time
Take your time.
Take your time.
No, if you can't do it in 9 months, I wouldn't.
No. Take your time. That's the
take your
advice. Okay, thank you. So you've got Paradiso. Daar staan ze op 13 september, 13th of September, right? Yes.
It's the day before your birthday.
It's 2 days before my birthday.
It's 2 days before
yes,
your birthday.
It's true.
Lucky for some.
Exactement. Dus wil je ze live zien, wees snel met een kaartje te kopen, want ze zijn al in voorverkoop en het gaat heel erg hard. En hun album kan je natuurlijk kopen via onder andere iTunes. En I'm guessing you can get the album on your website, www.boxerrebellion.com. Yes, there you go.
All good digital retailers.
There you go.
I don't know about the physical ones anymore.
And on that note, thank you.
HMV, Tower Records. Wait.